When Rex's amber eyes meet those blue eyes full of fear, the adult male lion makes a decision that will change two lives forever. The early morning in the Serengeti National Reserve always wakes up in a special way. On this day, the eastern sky had just turned white, and the golden sunlight slowly flowed through the endless grassland like a liquid. The morning mist swirls among the acacia trees, adding a touch of mystery to this wild land. Just after the rainy season, the vegetation on the grasslands is stunningly green, dotted with scattered wildflowers, and the air is filled with the fresh scent of a mix of earth and weeds. In this seemingly calm scene, a small figure huddles under an isolated acacia tree. Toby, the 3.5-year-old blond boy, trembled and his arms clutched around his knees. His blue hooded coat was covered in dust, his little face was red and swollen from long crying, and his big blue eyes were full of helplessness and fear. His lips were chapped from lack of water, and his voice was hoarse, and he could only let out a faint whimper. "Mom! Daddy," Toby called softly, but all he could answer was the rustle of the morning breeze across the prairie. Yesterday, his parents took him to the edge of the reserve for wildlife watching, but during a short break, Toby chased a colorful butterfly and unknowingly went too far. When he came back to his senses, there was only an unfamiliar grassland scenery around him, no parents, no other tourists, only suffocating loneliness and fear. When night fell, Toby tried to go back the way he came, but only walked farther and farther on the grassland. He heard the sounds of various wild animals in the darkness, the roar of lions in the distance, the laughter of hyenas, and other unrecognizable sounds. Fear drove him to climb a low acacia tree, and spent an uneasy night among the branches until he slid down to the bottom of the tree. Now, as the day begins, Toby is exhausted, his throat is dry, and his stomach hurts from hunger. He didn't know where he was or which direction to go. The reserve is vast and complex for a small child. Just then, there was a slight noise in the grass. Toby froze, his heart racing and his breathing becoming rapid. The grass parted, and a large figure slowly appeared. It was Rex, the most powerful lion in the area. Rex's size was formidable, his muscles bulging under his golden fur and his thick mane glistening in the morning light. He had just finished his night patrol and was about to return to the center of his territory to rest. The male lion's gait is light and graceful, which contrasts with its massive size. Every step of his way was filled with confidence and strength, and his amber eyes scanned his surroundings alertly. When Rex spotted the small figure under the tree, he stopped. The lion's nostrils dilated slightly, catching the scent of the strange creature. When Toby saw the beast, fear ran through his body like electricity, and he wanted to scream, only to find his voice stuck in his throat. His body froze completely, and he almost stopped breathing. Rex approached slowly, cautious and curious with every step. For this seasoned predator, the human cub is a strange and complex existence. His ears were cocked forward, and his tail was slightly wagging in a sign of his alertness and interest. When the distance between the two was reduced to less than 10 meters, Toby finally found his voice and let out a faint sob. The sound caused Rex to stop, his head tilted slightly, as if to assess whether the little creature posed a threat or if it was in danger of its own. It was at this moment that Rex's eyes met Toby's. The lion's amber eyes are deep and full of wisdom, forming a wonderful staring with the boy's frightened blue eyes. In this brief but profound moment, there seems to be some kind of silent communication established between two completely different beings. Rex's reaction was unexpected. He didn't show aggression and didn't turn away. Instead, the mighty predator slowly took a step forward, then another, with an almost mild curiosity in his eyes. Toby held his breath, tears running down his cheeks, unable to look away. In the vast grasslands of the Serengeti, between an abandoned young boy and a powerful male lion, an incredible story unfolds. And the direction of this story will depend on Rex's next action, a decision that will change two lives forever. Jack Wilson still vividly remembers that fateful morning 7 years ago. On that day, The skies over the Serengeti were shrouded in the afterglow of a storm as he drove a reserve jeep patrolling the muddy road to check for damage to fences and markings from torrential rains. As he passed a bush in the north end, a faint whimper caught his attention. It wasn't your average animal voice, Jack later described to his colleagues, and there was a fragile but resilient quality that I couldn't ignore. He stopped the car and cautiously followed the sound. After making his way through a few tall grasses, Jack discovers a heartbreaking scene, an adult lioness lying on the ground, her body already cold. Judging by the scars, she may have been fatally wounded in an encounter with the poachers and dragged her last breath back to this hideout. And next to her body, a lion cub, about 3 weeks old, was trying to push its mother, who was no longer responding, and let out a desperate whimper. That moment completely changed me, Jack recalls, his blue eyes flashing with emotion at the time. The little guy looked up at me with a mixture of fear and an incredible determination. Jack knew that without the care of his mother, the cub had little chance of surviving in the wild. He carefully wrapped the lion cub in a blanket and radioed the reserve's veterinary team. When he carried the cub back to the car, the little one didn't struggle too much and seemed to understand that this was his only hope. I named him Rex, Jack explained, which means king in Latin. Even at such a young age, there was an innate dignity in him. Over the next few months, Jack devoted himself almost entirely to raising Rex. Claire, the sanctuary's chief veterinarian, has developed a special nutrition plan for the lion cubs. Jack has set up a makeshift shelter next to his hut to ensure that Rex receives the necessary care without becoming overly dependent on humans. It was a challenging and incredibly satisfying time, recalls Claire, her green eyes sparkling with the memories. Rex has shown remarkable adaptability from the start. He quickly learns to eat from a bottle and is healthily alert to his surroundings. As Rex grows, Jack and the team are faced with a crucial decision: how to help the young lion get back into the wild. A mere release is almost equivalent to a death sentence, as Rex lacks the experience and skills to live in a lion pack. The solution came from a bold proposal from Marcus, the chief ranger. There is a small lion pack of 3 adult lionesses and 2 cubs in the eastern part of the reserve, with the lead lioness Sarah having been rescued before and is not overly afraid of humans. Marcus suggests trying a supervised introduction to see if Sarah is willing to take in Rex. "It was the most stressful day of my career," Jack said, his fingers unconsciously tapping on his knee. "It took us a couple of weeks to get Rex and Sarah to get acquainted with each other through the scent, but the eventual encounter was still uncertain." On a carefully selected early morning, the team took 6-month-old Rex to an open area near the Sarah lions. They keep a safe distance but are ready to intervene at any time. Rex appears nervous at first, but as Sarah slowly approaches, a miracle happens. The lioness sniffed the young Rex cautiously, circled around him a few times, and then made an unexpected move. She gently licked the top of Rex's head, a clear sign of acceptance. "I had to turn around," Claire admitted, "because I didn't want the team to see me cry. That moment was so beautiful, so pure." Over the next few weeks, the team closely monitored the new combination. Not only does Sarah take in Rex, but she also begins to teach him like her own cubs. She taught him how to stealth, how to recognize the scents of different animals, and the complex social rules of lion life. Rex showed an amazing ability to learn and quickly integrated into the daily life of the lions. Interestingly, Marcus observed, Rex seems to retain some kind of special connection to humanity. He never showed fear or hostility towards our vehicles like other wild lions. He would keep his distance, but always look at us with an almost approving look, especially when looking at Jack. As the years passed, Rex grew from a clumsy cub to a strong young lion. As he approaches the age of 3, the instincts of nature begin to manifest themselves. It's time to find his territory. On a moonless night, Rex leaves Sarah's lions and embarks on a solo journey. "We almost lost track of him during that time," Jack said, "and it was a natural process, but I have to admit that I was so worried that I couldn't sleep." 6 months later, patrols discovered Rex's footprints in the northwest of the reserve. Not only did he survive, but he also managed to challenge and replace the elderly leader of a small lion pack and become the king of his own territory. Even more surprising is that he took in 2 cubs from the previous leader, although in the wild, new male lions usually kill cubs that are not of his own blood. At that moment, I knew Rex was special, Jack said with a smile. He's not just a lion, he's a guardian. He seems to have inherited the best qualities of both worlds of man and lion, the strength of the wild and the mercy of civilization. Over time, Rex grew into one of the reserve's most impressive male lions. He surpassed most of his kind, with a thick, ornate golden mane that burned like a flame in the sun. But what really sets him apart is his behavior. The lions he leads have never attacked the reserve staff, and even sometimes mysteriously appear nearby when patrols encounter poachers. Sometimes I feel like he recognizes our vehicle voices, Claire said thoughtfully. Some early mornings, when we do a routine check, we find him sitting on the side of the road, with amber eyes looking at us, as if to say, I'm on patrol too. By the age of 7, Rex had fully matured and become the undisputed king of the Serengeti. His territory is about 1/3 larger than the average lion's, and the way he manages the area shows rare intelligence and strategic thinking. He seems to be paying particular attention to the boundaries of the reserve, which is the area most often attempted by poachers. Within Rex's territory, poaching has decreased by almost 40%, Marcus said with pride in his eyes, citing the data. We can't prove it's all because of him, but the numbers don't lie. It was this extraordinary lion, a life that had grown up under human care and returned to its wild nature, that met Toby, who had also been abandoned by fate, in the early morning of fate. And this encounter will once again prove that Rex is not just a lion, but a true guardian. The daily workings of the Serengeti National Reserve are like a precision clock, and every gear counts. Jack and his team usually start working before dawn, and while most of the visitors are still asleep in their tents, they are already driving old but reliable jeeps through the vast grasslands. Mornings in the sanctuary are the most beautiful, Jack often tells new interns, and the most dangerous. This quote contains the wisdom of years of experience. Early morning is not only the peak time of animal activity, but also the favorite time of day for poachers. A typical workday involves inspecting fences and markers, monitoring the activities of endangered species, collecting data for scientific research projects, and ensuring the safety of visitors. Everyone on the team wears many hats. Marcus is not only the chief ranger, but also a great mechanic able to fix almost any malfunction in the field with the most basic tools. In addition to being a veterinarian, Claire is well versed in botany. Jack, on the other hand, combines his biological background with excellent diplomatic skills to serve as a key bridge between the reserve and the local community. We're not just protecting animals, Jack often emphasizes, we're protecting an entire ecosystem, including the people who depend on the land for their survival. This philosophy is reflected in their day-to-day work. At least one day a week, the team travels to the surrounding villages to give educational talks or help solve human-animal conflicts. However, in recent years, protected areas have faced increasingly severe challenges. Poaching is no longer confined to isolated individuals, but has evolved into well-organized criminal networks. These gangs are well-armed and use advanced technology to evade surveillance, and their targeting has expanded from ivory and rhino horn to the live animal trade. Last month, we found 3 well-camouflaged traps on the northern border, Marcus reported at a regular meeting, his tired eyes revealing deep concern. They are clearly designed to capture lion cubs. On the black market, a live lion cub can be sold for $50,000. The discovery shocked the entire team. The live animal trade is not only cruel, it also poses a greater threat to populations. Adults are killed, young are taken captive, and entire social fabrics are destroyed. More worryingly, it means that poachers have begun to set their sights on the lions in the reserve, including Rex's family. In this complicated situation, Rex becomes an unexpected ally. This powerful male lion seems to have a special eye for the boundaries of the reserve, and his lion pack often patrols the most vulnerable areas. Scientists have found that Rex's range overlaps with poaching hotspots through satellite tracking. It can't be just a coincidence, Claire commented while studying the data. Rex seems to sense the threat and consciously protects the area he deems important. However, this behavior of Rex has also raised questions from some scientists. Robert Morrison, a researcher from the International Wildlife Conservation Society, thinks it's just a projection. We tend to give human traits to animals, especially those to which we are emotionally connected. Rex's behavior pattern can be explained entirely by the territorial defense instinct, without having to assume that he has any special sense of protection. Jack dismisses this view. Science requires skepticism, and I respect that, he responded in an interview, but after 2 decades in the field, I know that there are animals that do go beyond our traditional understanding of how they behave. Rex is such a being. The challenges of protected areas are not only from poachers. Longer dry seasons due to climate change are making water and food more scarce. At the same time, the expansion of human settlements continues to erode wildlife habitats. On the edge of protected areas, incidents of human-animal conflict are increasing every year, livestock are preyed, crops are destroyed, and occasionally casualties are caused. This is a multidimensional crisis, Jack explained to potential donors at a fundraiser, and we need a full range of solutions: better fencing technology, community education programs, sustainable agriculture support, and more effective patrol systems. Funding shortfalls are another ongoing problem. Despite being a world-renowned tourist destination, conservation efforts require far more money than ticket revenue. Government funding is often delayed or cut, and international aid is volatile due to political factors. Teams have to learn to achieve maximum results with limited resources, which means long hours, innovative thinking, and occasional personal sacrifices. I had to postpone my daughter's college tuition payments last month, Marcus admitted in a private conversation, but when I saw the rhino mother and son we saved, I knew it was worth it. My daughter thinks so too. In this context, the Sanctuary team has developed a special kind of resilience and creativity. They used local materials to create improvised surveillance devices, built a mutually beneficial information network with the surrounding community, and even developed a simple but effective mobile app that allows visitors to report suspicious activity or animal sightings. Claire's work as a veterinarian also presents unique challenges. You can't just be a good doctor here, she explains, and you have to be a combination of a detective, an engineer, and a diplomat. Without advanced diagnostic equipment, she had to rely on keen observation and a wealth of experience. Without a standard operating room, she needed to improvise a sterile environment in the field. In the face of injured large predators, she must find a balance between safety and treatment. The hardest part is deciding when to intervene, Claire said, her voice softened by the heavy topic. Nature is cruel, but it also has its wisdom. Sometimes, the most compassionate act is to let the cycle of nature continue. However, when it comes to obvious man-made injuries, such as wounds from traps or gunshot wounds, the team's policy is to provide treatment in every possible way. This is not only out of respect for life, but also to gather evidence to help combat poaching. Just a week before Toby went missing, the team experienced a particularly intense operation. A young female elephant was found prowling around the edge of the reserve dragging an injured hind leg. Upon closer inspection, Claire determined that it was a wound from a poaching trap that required immediate intervention. That operation lasted 4 hours, Marcus recalls, and we set up a makeshift operating area in the field, with Jack in charge of anesthesia and me and 3 other men in charge of keeping an eye out against the elephant herd coming back or predators being attracted to the smell of blood. Claire's performance was like magic, using the most basic tools to complete a complex vascular repair. The operation was successful, but the team's challenge was not over. They had to monitor the recovery of the female elephant while tracking down the source of the trap. By analyzing the construction and materials of the trap, they determined that this belonged to the same maker as the trap previously found at the northern border. "We're narrowing down the search," Jack said as he reported to the district director, but these guys are cautious and professional. I suspect they have inside sources who know our patrol routes and schedules. This suspicion caused a wave of unease within the team. The thought of a possible colleague providing information to poachers is chilling. Jack decides to change his patrol strategy for the time being, and only he and a few of his most trusted team members know the full plan. It was in the midst of this tension that the sanctuary welcomed a regular day of visitors, including Toby and his parents. No one could have foreseen how the impulse of a curious young boy chasing butterflies would intertwine with the fate of an extraordinary lion, ultimately revealing a poaching network far more extensive and dangerous than imagined. And it all began, that fateful morning, when Rex's amber eyes met Toby's terrified blue eyes, and the two very different trajectories of life began to converge incomposably. Rex slowly approached Toby, cautious and steady with every step. The boy was no longer sobbing, but holding his breath, his body stiffened with fear. In wildlife documentaries, this is often the last image before the tragedy, a brief, tension-filled moment of stillness between a powerful predator and a helpless prey. But what happened next broke the conventional script of nature. Rex stopped about 2 meters away from Toby, his massive head lowered, his amber eyes staring intently at the boy. His nostrils dilated slightly, soaking in the scent of the little human. Toby felt his heartbeat thunder in his ears, and he was sure the beast could hear it too. Then, Rex made a surprising move. He slowly and almost gracefully lay down with his front paws extended, striking a non-threatening pose. It was a gesture of peace between lions, but it was unprecedented to do so to a human cub. He won't hurt me. Toby's thoughts churned in confusion, and fear lessened slightly, replaced by a hint of curiosity. Rex maintained this position, his eyes showing a calmness that bordered on wisdom. As a few minutes passed, Toby's breathing gradually returned to normal, and he realized that if the lion wanted to hurt him, he would have acted a long time ago. Just then, a shrill birdsong was heard in the distance, and Rex's ears immediately stood up in alarm. He quickly stood up, his head turned in the direction of the source of the sound, and his muscles tensed. Toby could sense some kind of danger approaching, and Rex seemed to sense it. Surprisingly, Rex didn't leave. Instead, he moves between Toby and the potential threat, striking a protective pose. Soon, there was a rustling sound in the bushes, and 3 figures appeared in the field of vision. They were dressed in camouflage suits, armed with rifles, and with a grim expression on their faces. "Look what we've found," the lead man said in a thick accented English, "a lost child and a priceless lion. Today is our lucky day, guys." Toby immediately understood who these men were, poachers, dangerous people his parents had warned him to stay away from. Fear swept through the body again, but this time not for Rex, but for these strangers with weapons in hand. Rex's reaction was shocking. He did not run away and did not attack immediately. Instead, he let out a low growl, a clear warning in his voice. His tail swayed slowly from side to side, his muscles bulging under his fur, showing off his strength as an apex predator. "Deal with the lion first," instructed the lead poacher, raising his rifle, "and then we'll decide what to do with the kid." Toby closed his eyes and waited for the moment of horror when the gunshot rang out. But instead there was a deafening roar, followed by chaotic shouts and the sound of falling guns. When he plucked up the courage to open his eyes, he was stunned by what he saw. Rex rushed towards the poachers with incredible speed and strength, his movements precise and deadly, like a golden bolt of lightning. The leading poacher was thrown to the ground, and the other 2 retreated in panic, one of them with his gun dropped in the chaos. "Run! It's a demon lion!" A poacher shouted in Swahili, his voice filled with primal fear. In this critical moment, Rex showed extraordinary judgment. Instead of chasing the fleeing poachers, he quickly returned to Toby's side and once again assumed a protective stance. The leading poacher got up, picked up the dropped rifle, hesitated for a moment, and retreated. "We'll be back," he threatened, with a vicious glint in his eyes, "and no one can take our prey from us." After the poachers disappear into the bushes, Toby and Rex fall into a strange tranquility. The boy couldn't believe what had just happened. A wild lion not only did not harm him, but also protected him from poachers. It goes against everything he knows about wildlife. Rex seemed equally confused. He walked slowly around Toby, stopping to sniff from time to time, as if trying to make sense of the little human. Eventually, he fell on his stomach in front of Toby again, maintaining a non-threatening position. Toby's fear is gradually replaced by a sense of awe and curiosity. He cautiously stretched out a trembling hand, then quickly retracted it. Rex didn't move, just watched him calmly. You saved me," Toby whispered, his voice hoarse from the long cry. "Thank you." Of course, Rex couldn't have understood the words, but he seemed to react to Toby's voice. His ears twitched slightly, and his eyes showed an almost mild curiosity. As time passed, Toby's fear dissipated completely, replaced by a strange sense of reassurance. He was tired, hungry and thirsty, but at least now he was no longer alone. He sat down against the trunk of a tree, arms around his knees, trying to conserve his strength. Rex remained vigilant, occasionally looking up to sniff the air, his ears catching any possible threat. He didn't leave Toby's side, as if he had decided to protect this weak life. The afternoon sun shines through the leaves on the strange duo, creating a surreal image of a lost little boy and a mighty lion, sharing a moment of incredible peace in the vast grasslands of Africa. As the sun set in the west, Toby's condition began to deteriorate. Dehydration and hunger made him weaker and weaker, his lips chapped and his skin reddened from exposure to the sun. He knew that if he didn't get water and food, the situation would become very dangerous. Rex seemed to sense Toby's discomfort. He stood up, gave the boy a meaningful look, and walked slowly to the bushes not far away. Toby felt a rush of panic. Was his protector leaving him? But Rex didn't go far. He disappeared into the bushes for a few minutes and then came back with something in his mouth. As he approached, Toby saw clearly, it was a small antelope, dead, but looking very fresh. Rex placed his prey in front of Toby and took a few steps back, as if waiting for some kind of response. Toby looked at the gift in confusion, unsure of how to respond. He knew he needed food, but raw meat was an impossible option for him. I can't eat this," Toby whispered, "but thank you." Rex tilted his head, as if pondering the question. Then he did something even more surprising, he began to tear open the prey with his claws and teeth, revealing the flesh inside. This is how lions usually prepare food for their cubs, making the meat easier to digest. Toby looked at this scene, both moved and confused. This wild lion is not only protecting him, but also trying to feed him as if it were his own cubs. Still, raw meat is not a food he can accept. But the water in the antelope's body is life-saving. Picking up his courage, Toby crawled towards his prey, dipped his fingers in some blood and tissue fluid, and carefully licked it. The taste was disgusting, but the moisture immediately soothed his thirsty throat. Rex observes all of this and seems satisfied that Toby has accepted at least part of the gift. He began to enjoy his share of the meal, but remained alert, keeping an eye on his surroundings. By sunset, Toby's condition improved slightly, but he knew he wouldn't be able to spend another night in the wild. He needs to find a source of water, he needs to return to the human world. But in this strange step, he was completely disoriented. Just then, the sound of an engine could be heard in the distance. Toby immediately perked up, it was the sound of the vehicle. He struggled to his feet, trying to shout, but his voice was too weak to reach far. Rex reacted even more violently. He was immediately alert, his ears pricked up, and his muscles tensed. But curiously, he did not show hostility or fear, but a gesture of near anticipation. When a familiar reserve jeep came into view, Toby felt a tidal wave of hope rush in. There were two people in the car, an African man he didn't know, and the friendly ranger he had met at the visitor center, Jack. "Look there!" Jack shouted suddenly, pointing in the direction of Toby and Rex. "Oh my God, that's Rex. And also, God, that's a child." The jeep quickly turned and drove towards them. Instead of running away, Rex remained on alert, standing between Toby and the approaching vehicle, as if assessing whether it was a threat or a rescue. When the car is parked at a safe distance, Jack slowly gets out of the car and raises his hands to indicate harmlessness. His eyes moved back and forth between Rex and Toby, his face full of disbelief. "Toby Williams?" he asked cautiously, his voice remaining calm. "Your parents are looking for you everywhere. You okay?" Toby tried to answer, but could only let out a faint whimper. Tears welled up in my eyes, this time because of relief and hope. Jack took a slow step forward, but Rex let out a low growl of warning that caused him to stop immediately. Okay, Jack whispered, not only to Rex, but also to Toby. "I'm not going to come close. Rex, old man, it's me. I'm not going to hurt this kid, I'm here to help." To everyone's surprise, Rex seemed to understand the words. His posture relaxed slightly, and the low growl stopped, but he remained vigilant and did not leave Toby's side. "It's incredible," Jack whispered to his companion, "he's protecting this kid. I've never seen anything like it." The next few minutes are a choreographed dance. Jack slowly approaches, constantly soothing Rex with a soft voice while explaining to Toby what they're doing. Eventually, he managed to get close enough to pass the water bottle and some cookies to Toby. The boy drank the water greedily, and every sip was like the nectar of life. When his basic needs are met, Jack begins to plan how to bring him back safely. "Toby, we need to get you back to camp," Jack explained, "but we have to be careful not to alarm Rex. He seems to be very protect you." Toby looked at Rex with a strange reluctance. The lion saved his life and not only protected him from poachers, but also tried to take care of him in his own way. "He won't hurt me," Toby said, his voice clearer because of the hydration. "He saved me. Some bad guys came, they had guns, and Rex drove them away." Jack's expression became serious. "Poachers? In this area?" Toby nodded. "They said they were going to deal with the lion first and then decide what to do with me. But Rex protected me." Jack and his companion exchanged a meaningful look. It's not just a rescue operation for lost children, it's also about the safety of the reserve and intelligence on poaching activities. After careful consideration, Jack decided to go with a bold plan. "Toby, do you think you can walk slowly to the car? Walk over naturally as if we were friends, don't run, don't show fear." Toby looked at Rex, then nodded. He stood up slowly, his legs numb from the long sitting. Rex immediately became alert, but showed no intent to attack. "It's all right," Toby said to Rex, his voice soft and firm. "They are good people who have come to help me. Thank you for saving me." Then, under everyone's watchful eye, Toby began to walk slowly towards the jeep, careful with every step. Rex followed him, keeping a vigilant stance. When Toby arrives at the car door, Jack is ready to pick him up. "Get in the car slowly," he instructed, "and be steady." Toby did so and climbed into the back seat, feeling the security inside the car. Rex stood outside the car, his amber eyes watching it all, as if assessing the situation. "We're going to drive," Jack whispered. "Rex may follow for some distance, but eventually return to his territory." When the engine started, Rex took a few steps back, but did not run away. The jeep slowly moved forward, and Toby turned to look through the back window at Rex as he grew farther and farther away. "Goodbye, Rex," he whispered, a tear running down his cheek. "Thank you." To everyone's surprise, Rex began to trot in the direction of the vehicle, keeping a distance, but clearly following them. He showed no intent to attack, but only seemed to want to make sure Toby reached his destination safely. "I've never seen anything like it," exclaimed Jack's companion, "it's nothing short of miraculous." Jack nodded, his eyes glinting with awe and thought. It's not just a miracle, he whispered, it's a signal. Rex wasn't just a lion, he was the guardian of the land, and now, he was the guardian of the child. The jeep moved on, and Toby's rescue was just the beginning. Rex's actions set off a series of events that will uncover a poaching network far more dangerous than imagined and tie the fate of the reserve to a young boy, an extraordinary lion, and a group of people dedicated to protecting wildlife. At dusk, the sky in the Serengeti is dyed orange-red, with long shadows stretching across the grasslands. Toby huddles under an isolated acacia tree, nearly exhausted of strength and hope. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the bushes, and Rex's massive figure reappeared, but this time he wasn't alone. Behind him, followed by the entire group of lions, 3 lionesses and 4 cubs, carefully keeping their distance. Rex walked over to Toby, something in his mouth. As he got closer, Toby was surprised to find that it was a plastic water bottle, bitten but still half a bottle of water. It's for me. Toby reached out in disbelief to take it. The water bottle bears the symbol of the reserve, probably found from some tourist camp or patrol station. Rex couldn't possibly understand the purpose of the water bottle, but he seemed to have observed humans using the items, and had some kind of intuition that it was valuable to Toby. Toby drank the water greedily, and the life force flowed back into his body. Rex lay down beside him, forming a natural barrier that separated Toby from the outside world. Even more surprisingly, one of the lionesses, the eldest of the pack, slowly approached and lay down on Toby's other side, forming a second line of protection. "You're protecting me," Toby whispered, tears rolling in his eyes. As night falls, the temperature drops rapidly. Toby began to shiver, his thin t-shirt unable to withstand the cold of the African night. Rex seemed to notice this, and he shifted his body closer until Toby could feel the warmth of his fur. Under the starlight, the lost boy snuggles up to an adult male lion and is surrounded and protected by the entire lion pack, forming a peculiar picture that transcends the laws of nature. The lion cubs watched curiously at the strange hairless creature, occasionally daringly sniffing closer, before quickly retreating to their mother. Toby's fear was gone entirely, replaced by a deep sense of awe and connection. In this moment, he is no longer a lost tourist, but becomes part of this ancient ecosystem, accepted and protected by nature's most powerful guardians. #### Jack discovers the scene where Toby and Rex are discovered. As soon as the first rays of light before dawn touched the horizon, Jack's search and rescue team was already deep into the most remote areas of the reserve. After a long night of searching, the team was exhausted, but no one offered to give up. "Check the northern border again," Jack said to the radio, his voice hoarse from the continuous work. "There are a few puddles there, and if the child is still alive, he may go and find water." Just then, Marcus' voice came over the radio with disbelief in his tone. "Jack, you have to look at this." Surveillance cameras on the northern border caught something. "It's Rex, and his lions. But something is not right, they are in a circle, as if to protect something." Jack's heart was beating faster, and a premonition came to him: "Send me the coordinates, and we'll go over immediately." 20 minutes later, Jack's jeep stopped on the edge of an open area. Through the telescope, he saw a shocking scene. Rex's lions formed a protective circle, with a small human figure sleeping against the body of a male lion in the center. "God," Jack whispered, "it's Toby, he's alive." Claire clenched her medical bag. "How do we get close?" "The lions won't let us get close easily." Jack took a deep breath. "I have an idea, but I need to take a risk. Rex knew my smell and sound, and we had many encounters. If he was really protecting this kid and not take him as prey, then he might allow me to get close." Under the horrified gaze of his colleagues, Jack slowly got out of the car, carrying no weapons, only a bottle of water and a first aid kit. He began to walk in the direction of the lions, carefully every step he took, while softly calling Rex's name. The lions immediately became alert, and the lionesses took a defensive stance, but Rex's reaction was surprising. He stood up, walked in front of the lions, and looked directly at Jack with a gesture that was neither threatening nor fearful, but a vigilance that bordered on recognition. "Rex, old man," Jack whispered, "I'm here to help that kid. You've done a great job protecting him, now let me take him home, okay?" As everyone watched with bated breath, Rex took a step back, as if to make way. Jack slowly approached, eventually kneeling beside Toby, who was half asleep. "Hi, Toby," he said gently, "I'm Jack, and I've come to take you home. Your parents are very worried about you." Toby opened his eyes, confused at first, then smiling, "I knew someone was coming. Rex has been protecting me. He's my friend." When Jack carefully picked up Toby, Rex didn't interfere, just watched every movement intently. As they began to retreat, Rex followed a few steps before stopping, letting out a low roar as if to say goodbye. Toby turned his head and waved to his savior, "Goodbye, Rex. Thank you." In that moment, the line between man and beast seemed blurred, and an understanding beyond language shone in the morning light of the Serengeti. Toby's rescue became a Serengeti legend. Based on the information he provided, the reserve team was able to dismantle a transnational poaching group and save the lives of dozens of endangered animals. Toby's parents donated a sizable amount of money to establish the Rex Conservation Fund, which focuses on the harmonious coexistence of wildlife and the local community. A year later, Toby came to the Serengeti again, this time as a youth protection ambassador. Accompanied by Jack, they observed Rex and his growing family from a distance. When the male lion looked up in their direction, Toby was sure he recognized him. The story goes beyond a simple rescue narrative to remind us that wildlife is not just an instinct-driven creature we imagined. In the complex relationship between humans and nature, there are times when there are moments of connection that transcend understanding, reminding us of the deep interdependence of all life. Perhaps the most important lesson the Serengeti has taught us is that on this shared planet, conservation is not only a responsibility, but also a respect and reverence for life itself.